It's 6 o'clock, time to begin. And we welcome you to Madison's Board of Zoning Appeals, July the 8th, 2024. Could we have a roll call, please?
Scott Baldwin,
Here.
Mark Acosta,
Here.
Nancy Burkhart, Rick Ferris,
Here.
Carl Eagle.
Here.
Board members, have you had a chance to review last month's minutes? Are there any additions or corrections? If not, we'll take a motion to approve.
I move we approve as written.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The minutes are approved. Moving on to renewals, we had a number and everybody has paid except one, Susan Huser, Mike and Melinda Hess, Bob and Tammy Courtney, Barry Spear, Prince Peace Archdiocese, Seventh-day Adventist Church, Ray and Vicky Black, Samantha Greer, Jacqueline Jones, Mark Finley, and Sandra Smith all paid their renewal fees, no complaints. Therefore, I move that all these renewals, or that all of these conditional uses be renewed.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And we have one that was on the agenda, Stuart and Kim Heisey, 417 East Third, was a guest house. That property has been sold, so that conditional use is no longer relevant. Now, moving on, we had a tabled application from last month. Kate Fox, 716 Walnut Street, application for a short-term rental. So could someone come up and explain to the board what you want to do and so forth, please? If you give your name and address for the record, please.
Hello, my name is Kate Fox. I'm requesting permission to use my property at 716 Walnut Street as a short-term rental through Airbnb. Consider the potential impact of this decision on our community and have implemented a comprehensive set of rules and guidelines to assure the property is used responsibly and respectfully. It was attached to my application for your convenience, but just to go over some of the house rules that will go along with this. Occupancy limits, strictly limited to 6 guests at a time. Quiet hours from 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. No loud music or parties at any time. Parking regulations, maximum of 2 vehicles on street parking in front of the house. And then property access, guests must respect all property boundaries. Unauthorized access to neighboring properties is strictly prohibited. Respect for neighbors. Guests must respect the privacy and peace of the neighborhood. Any disputes or complaints from neighbors must be addressed promptly. And then a couple other, like fire safety, use of outdoor spaces, prohibited illegal activities or commercial activities or events are prohibited. I believe that by adhering to these rules, we can mitigate any potential negative impacts on our community. Additionally, I am committed to being a responsible host who is readily available to address any concerns or issues that may arise. I believe that operating in Airbnb at this property can have positive economic benefits for our community, supporting local businesses and attracting tourists. Committed to maintaining a high standard of operation that aligns with the values and expectations of the community. And I am happy to answer any questions you may have.
What are the consequences if they break these rules?
Well, the way Airbnb works is that if they break certain rules or regulations, they are no longer allowed to utilize Airbnb as a service, and they would not be allowed back to the property as well.
Which rules are those?
All the ones that I named.
All of them, okay. Guests are allowed up to 2 dogs with prior approval and so forth.
Yes.
What about cats?
That sounds fine kind to me. It's a fenced-in property, so,
No animal size limit, companion camels?
with prior approval, sure. You can get it in there, that's fine.
I'm being absurd, obviously. If it's not in writing, the city of Madison can't enforce it, so. I'd be more comfortable if you said pet dogs, pet cats,
I can,
pet cockatoos, or what.
sure thing, yeah.
How about pet dogs and pet cat,
Yeah.
dogs and cats only?
Yeah, I can edit that to make sure that it's more specific.
Well, I don't know if anybody brings a pet cat to anything.
Some people.
Down here on fire safety,
Uh-huh.
it says no open flames or candles inside the property. How about outside? It's fire pits and, things like that.
I
Would be
don't
an
have
issue.
one, for guest use, on the property. I will,
How about inside or outside the property, both?
both, yeah.
Okay?
Let me add that.
Board members, do you have any questions, comments?
I've got a question for you. So will they be calling you if they have any issues, or are you having a management run the place? Or, like I said, would they contact you, the guest?
The guests, they have access to me through the Airbnb, like app. It has its own messaging system.
What about the neighbors?
That's what I was just gonna say.
I can also provide a direct email address to my neighbors if they have concerns.
Well, I'm just saying that, I'm gonna go on with what you said, because, I live by a couple Airbnbs, and I thought it was just nice for them to come over to me and say, hey, this is what we're gonna do, here's my number if you have any problem.
Sure.
And I appreciate that as a neighbor.
Yeah, that's definitely something I'm willing to do. I don't wanna step on
Right,
anybody's
exactly.
toes. If something happens, I wanna know about it, so, yeah, that's definitely something that I can, provide for them, as a contact information.
Is there any parking from the alley? Or is that, do you have any parking back there? Or just everything gonna be on the street out front?
It'll be on the street. Behind me is the other side of another neighborhood, so,
Okay.
the only option is pretty much right in front of the property on street parking.
Okay. Now, I wish you also, on as far as safety, of course, 4th of July, Airbnb's filled up here in Madison, maybe a note about fireworks.
Yeah,
Because
that's a
there
good
are
point.
some close houses there.
Yeah, that's a good point. I will add that to my list here.
And you said 2 vehicles is,
Maximum.
okay.
Board members, any other questions or comments? Would anyone in the audience like to speak for or against this proposed conditional use? Okay, well, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, guys.
You can have a seat. Now we have to go through our findings of fact. And this is a conditional use permit. So we have 9 criteria that are actually made by state law. Number 1, I'll tell you what, board members, we have a long meeting. I will just read the number, maybe give a brief synopsis, and ask if anybody has any objections. If that's okay with all of you.
Sure.
Yes.
Number 1 is this category is 581, hotels, transient housing, so forth. Number 1, do you all agree this is the appropriate conditional use number?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Number 2, do you think this is, goes along with the comprehensive plan zoning ordinance?
Yes.
Yes.
Number 3, harmonious, appropriate in appearance with the general vicinity?
Yes.
Number 4, hazardous, disturbing to neighboring uses?
No.
Do you think that it's gonna be be, oh.
No,
see.
I'm saying, no, I don't
You
think
think
it will
that
be.
one's met, okay.
Yeah, yes.
And I do too, with appropriate enforcement of rules. Number 5, this is about utilities and so forth.
Yes.
Yes.
Number 6, detrimental to the economic welfare of the community.
No,
Benefit.
Number 7, problems by traffic noise, smoke, etc.
No.
This is, number 8 is about vehicular approaches to the property. Adequate for traffic.
Yes.
Number 9, loss of historic features.
No loss.
No loss, and I think that it's actually gonna help preserve an historic house. We've gone through our findings of fact, there are no objections.
I have one more question.
Yes.
I noticed over the weekend with a lot of the Airbnbs that a lot of them, when they rent them, also received a golf cart. Would that be considered your third vehicle, or is that in your plan to have that?
If you could come up to the podium, ma'am.
Yeah.
For our recording the meeting, that's why.
I hadn't considered it. That's definitely something to think about.
Okay.
My goal would be to take away the least amount of parking available to my neighbors, because having lived down there for,
Right.
for a few
Yeah.
years, I know how frustrating it is over the past weekend. So,
It was just something to think about, because I
It
know
is,
that
yeah.
most of the Airbnbs offered that, and you saw them all over town. I mean, they were everywhere, and
Yes.
I think it's a nice addition, but,
yeah.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, I know I've got some, some neighbors next to me that they have like, handicap parking right next to my property and stuff like that. I just don't wanna take up so much space
Sure.
that's available to them, so. But it is definitely something I should think about, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I move we approve this conditional use permit BZCU -24-17 for 1 year, subject to enforcing the house rules with the amendments to the house rules under number 5. Guests are allowed up to 2 dogs and or cats only. Number 14, no open flames or candles are allowed indoor or outside the property. And number 3, under that, no fireworks of any kind.
I'll
That is
second
my motion.
Second.
Could we have a roll call?
Rick Ferris,
yes,
Nancy Burkhart,
Yes.
Mark Acosta,
Yes.
Scott Baldwin,
Yes.
Carl Eagle.
Yes.
You have your conditional use, ma'am. Pardon me while I sort through my paper pile. Number 2 on the agenda, or excuse me, that was the tabled application under new applications. First item on the agenda is a rather extensive,
Hey, Scott, we
Yes.
should have 2 under tabled.
yes,
They had the parking separate.
Yeah, add parking separate.
okay, thank you. Number 2 was the same property, application for a variance from development standards to use on-street parking, since there's no off-street parking. The applicant has already explained what she wants to do. She's been inquired about golf cart parking. Board members, do you have any questions or comments about this?
No.
Do you have anything you'd like to add about golf cart parking? Would anybody in the audience like to speak for or against this proposed variance to allow on-street parking? Well, since not, then we will go through our next set of findings of fact about variances. This is a variance of use, 3 criteria. And I will ask for your comments because variances from the zoning Number one, will this be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, general welfare of the community? Mr. Acosta.
No, I don't see it being injurious at all. There'd be no more impact as if a regular family were living in a single residence.
Mr. Ferris.
I agree with Mr. Acosta's comments.
Mrs.
I
Burkhart.
do agree with those comments.
Mr. Eaglin.
I also agree.
And I think that was well stated. It's the same as if somebody lived there. Number two, the use and value of the adjacent area will not be affected, of adjacent properties will not be affected substantially adversely. Mr. Acosta.
No, being a rental property, it's gonna demand upkeep and, keeping everything looking nice, so the whole area, the whole community down there will benefit from that.
Mr. Ferris.
No, I don't believe, there'll be any negative impact. In fact, the, applicant has stated that she, is very conscious about, the effect on the neighbors.
Mrs. Burkhart.
I agree with those comments.
Mr. Eaglin.
I agree.
We heard no testimony from a realtor or an assessor, anybody that it'll affect adjacent property values, so I think that one's met. Number three, the need for the variance arises from some condition peculiar to this property. Mr. Acosta.
I think we see in so many properties downtown with, built in tight quarters, no off-street parking, that, applying the zoning ordinance as it is, basically negate the entire project.
Mr. Ferris.
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Acosta's comments, and I would just add that, you know, there are no other options really for parking, with these downtown properties, so, that is the peculiar nature of the property.
Mrs. Burkhart.
I agree with those comments. As we stated before, if it's a regular residence, they would be parking on the street anyway.
Mr. Eaglin.
I agree because, like I said, most residents have two vehicles, and she stated that the applicant would have, the people staying there will also have two vehicles, so it should fit very well.
And the peculiar condition is there is just no parking. Because there is very little parking for any property along that section down there. But we have gone through our findings of fact. We'll take a motion.
I make a motion we approve the BZVD -24-3.
Second?
We have a roll call.
Rick Ferris,
Yes.
Nancy Burkhart.
Yes.
Mark Acosta,
Yes.
Scott Baldwin,
Yes.
Carl Eaglin.
Yes.
You have your variance and conditional use, ma'am. We wish you well. Now, moving on to new applications. We have a situation here where there are two requests. Well, it's BZVD -24-31 and a bunch of others requesting two things. They're requesting a variance from developmental standards because of the size of 5 lots on 1000 plus East Fulton Street and 1339 East Fulton Street. In other words, the extension of Vaughn Drive out into the 2-mile fringe, or just outside the city limits. These were done for various purposes, but in my opinion, board members, since in the past we've had other people wanting to put campgrounds and such along Vaughn Drive and along Fulton Street, with your permission, we will start with the conditional use permit, because the variances are due to the fact the lots are small and can't meet all the requirements is the zoning out there. So if that's acceptable with you board members, we will discuss the conditional use.
It's okay.
Because like I said, we have in the past years, oh golly, 2022, 2020, there were big controversies about specific addresses, some of them 502, 504, 510, East Bond Drive, 904, I believe, East Bond Drive. Back in 2008, I think, or 2004, there was a controversy on the other end of town about putting a RV, sort of an RV park out there for 30 RVs, which was quite a while ago. But that's why I want to bring up whether or not we should even grant a conditional use. And then if we do decide, then of course variance will be needed. So I presume that's okay with everybody?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so under the conditional use, HDL Holdings Properties, the principal address given is 1000 plus East Fulton Street. Would someone like to come up and discuss what specifically you plan to do? How many trailers and so forth, RVs are gonna be there? And if you could give your name and address for the.
My name's George Griffin, 3124 West Black Road, Madison, Indiana. What we propose to do is a total of 8 lots, 6 on 1000 plus East Fulton Street. No structures being built, just gravel pads to park on, electric, water. And they will not be weekend rentals, they'll be seasonal for basically employees and family of employees of the company.
Of which company?
HDL Holding and Clifty Warehouse in Madison here.
Well, that's the one up on Clifty Drive.
Yes, sir.
It used to be a tobacco warehouse.
Yes, sir, many years ago.
Okay. So there ain't, I'm sorry I interrupted you.
No, you're fine. I'm not very good at speaking, so. But just basically, just trying to have a place where we can camp and get away from the everyday. But I've attached rules for the campground to the conditional use and variance permits. Obviously, all in accordance with state laws, no alcohol permitted off of your individual campsite. No one under 21 can consume alcohol. Pets must be leashed and attended at all times. Owner responsible for accidents and cleaning up messes. Children not to be left unattended in campgrounds at any time. Swimming in the river is strongly discouraged, but obviously we can't stop it. No fishing in the river without state required permits. Fireworks are strictly prohibited in campgrounds. Golf carts would be permitted as long as they follow the city ordinances as far as they're permitting insurance, 18-year-old plus driver, licensed driver, no ATVs, UTVs. Fires would be permitted in grills and fire rings only. Campsites are to be kept clean by their individual persons, or I have a crew that mows and takes care of stuff, and we just bill the individual individually. If they plan on being away, they're not allowed to basically sublet their lot to anybody so. Seasonal camp spots would run from April to the end of October. And obviously just being respectful to the neighborhood and the neighbors and, the fellow campers. Quiet hours would be from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. They can sit around their fire pits as late as they want, as long as the noise and the music was at a minimum. And any complaints from neighbors or other campers
understand, 8 RVs max.
6 on the south side of the road.
2 on the other
And
side.
two
Hang
on
on
the
just a
north
second.
side.
Which application are we actually talking about?
We've kind of grouped them all together.
There's 4 lots
There
with
are
the same
4 lots on the
address.
south side and
Yes, sir.
1 across
So
the
we're
street.
grouping all the conditional use permit applications
Yes,
as one? Okay,
because it's essentially
okay.
the 4 on the south side are all contiguous.
Yes,
And conceivably, you could ask for those to all be unified.
yes, sir.
And the one across the street is 1339
Yes, sir.
as an address, and that 1000 plus, that's kind of a catch-all address.
Didn't you say 6 on the south side of
6
the
on the
road
south side
and
of
2
the
on the
road.
north side?
And 2 on the
And you're
north
talking
side.
about that little access road that's already there, that you're gonna use as the road?
There is a driveway
Yeah.
on the property, yes, sir.
Okay.
We removed an old mobile home from
Okay,
the property.
there was a big tractor tire
Yes, sir.
sitting there
Yes,
for a
sir.
long time.
8 lots.
Yes, sir.
So you're proposing 8
8 total, yes, sir.
and they're to be occupied mainly by employees of Clifty Warehouse.
Yes, sir.
So how long would you let them stay?
It would be from mid-April to the end of October.
So they
Same as the city campgrounds, but
so they could essentially live there from April till October?
essentially, yes, but, you know, other than like on a long weekend is the most a person is typically going to be there. But
That's
now I
fine.
did not state in the rule that they couldn't stay.
As far as services, you're just gonna provide electrical and no sewage of anything?
There's no sewage available there.
Right, I didn't think
So they'd
there
have to
was.
use the dump carts.
Okay,
Same thing, which the city has a dump station.
sure, yeah, no, they were.
You have carts to totes or whatever you like to call them.
And there'd be no permanent buildings,
No,
shelter
sir.
houses, et cetera?
No, sir.
I mean, of course, if somebody wanted to put up a temporary canopy like they do here at the regatta, wouldn't be anything
Yeah.
wrong with that, I wouldn't think.
I wouldn't imagine, no, sir.
Yeah, and there's no boat ramps?
No.
You said no swimming, but no boat ramps either. So it's not really a commercial business, other than it's something for your employees to,
Yes,
use.
sir. And, some electricians that work for us, they do work for the city.
Mhm.
They inquired about a spot also. They're basically employees of ours.
Madison's flood ordinance provides, I assume you were familiar with it?
Somewhat learning as I go.
but these would be units that you could easily hitch
Yes, sir.
onto and pull out.
Yes, sir. They're just
You know,
towable units.
no, probably no skirting, cause it won't be
No, sir.
freezing when they're down there,
Yes, sir.
yeah.
It's the same thing, I mean, there's pretty much all the lots down there are utilized for the same thing. I'm just,
Yeah.
feel like I'm going through the right channels to try to acquire the permission to do
And
it.
you're not blocking any view, because the only thing you got behind you on the north side is the highway, basically.
On the north side, yes,
On the
sir.
north side, no neighbors,
Just the two
Yeah.
houses to
right.
east and west.
The flood ordinance, Article 5, Section C, explains about manufactured homes and recreational vehicles in the floodplain, and as you maybe know, the floodplain consists of 2 things: the floodway, where the water really goes,
Yes, sir.
and then the fringe, where the water just kind of works its way up, and your lot is in the floodway. So you're subject to all kinds of DNR rules,
Yes, sir.
Madison's rules, FEMA rules. In fact, staff would have to tell me if you'd have to even go to the DNR for approval.
He will have to go to the DNR, and also this is in the county's flood jurisdiction, so he'll need to go to the county for the floodplain regulations.
Thank you. And obviously, we have had, in my time in this town, we've had 4 or 5 incidents where the elevation of your lot is about 450 feet, plus or minus a foot. And we have had quite a few floods that reached that or exceeded it. Like 2011, when they were trying to build a bridge, it went up to 457 feet. That's why the flood ordinance says recreational vehicles placed on a site shall either be on site for less than 180 days, be fully licensed and ready for highway use, no permanently attached connections, or meet a bunch of requirements for manufactured homes, which means basically they gotta be elevated. I'd also note, board members, we had a controversy on the same address, actually, back June 5, 2020, and we had a submission from Nicole Shell, our city planner right over here, and she's given you a copy, and of course, anybody in the public wants a copy, just ask. In that case was on your June BZA agenda. You'll be asked to review 3 conditional use permits for camping or RV on riverfront property. While the Office of Planning and Preservation does not see an issue with the temporary use of one personal RV on a privately owned riverfront property, large group camping does not fit in with the planning efforts of the city of Madison. Board members, I'd also remind you that conditional uses, we have to say whether or not it meets the comprehensive plan, which of course is that document that's on the secretary's desk over there. That was passed in 2016. And it says specifically a recommendation for the zoning of riverfront properties within city limits is park, open space, cultural. Page 74, this designation includes neighborhood and community parks, marina, recreation, etc. Active use parks that support a large number of activities should be connected to public utilities. This is the only land use designation appropriate for consideration in the 100-year floodplain. And it goes on to specifically say neither 1,000 plus East Fulton Street or 926 East Vaughn Drive at the time are connected to public utilities and therefore should remain open green space. And it also goes on to say Office of Planning would be amenable to a conditional use which permits using these green spaces limited to 5 weekends a year, Memorial Day, July 4, which is obviously Regatta, Riverfest, Labor Day, and Chautauqua. And I gave you out of past minutes, the ones I gave you had considerable restrictions that we voted on, but that was definitely on the city limits side of Vaughn Drive. And we had another case that was just outside. We had a couple of cases that were outside the city limits on Vaughn Drive. One of them was a conditional use permit at 14, I'll never find it in my pile of papers here, but it was 1,400 or so east Fulton. If you recall, it was that thing that looked like a tiny house on top of a really substantial frame with a couple of big tires. And we gave a conditional use permit for that. The discussion was put a license plate on it so it can be towed away if needs be. So I'm just bringing this to your attention that one of our criteria will be what does the comprehensive plan say about this kind of an activity. Granted, in my view, there are quite a few properties down there that have, well, I went down there on the day after Regatta this year. There were campers down there. They were just one person, one family. There was one that was accessed down to a houseboat on the river. So my point is, we have never had large group camping. It's always been, and certainly on the city side and on the RA side, it's been just like an owner owns the property and he goes down there and puts his trailer. So I brought that to your attention, board members, because I think that's important in this case. Board members, do you have any other questions or comments?
Not right now.
Would anybody in the audience like to speak for or against this proposal? You can have a seat, sir. Yes, sir, come on up. Would you give your name and address for the record, please?
Yeah, my name's Dean Jacks, 1036 Fillmore, which is diagonal, I guess. But be to the point, I mean, it's just two things, two concerns that I think it'll devalue my property and concerned about the long-term precedence. Sorry.
Thank you. Do you wish to speak, ma'am?
Yes, please. My name's Rita Netherton, and we have the adjoining property there, the one to the side of the two and across the street from us. And we've been there for 50 years. You know, it's a home and family, and I really oppose, you know, this. And him saying that it was for their company, but then brought up the fact that, well, then other people, electrical people, want to come in too, so then is it just a free-for-all of who is going to be camping there? And concerns about, I guess he addressed, you know, the sewage, you know, because most of us down through there are on septic. And I have, I don't understand why I was the only person, I received certified letters, and I am the only one along there that was notified. The gentleman that just spoke, I talked to him, he wouldn't even have known. No one along there knows that this is proposed until today that I spoke with them.
About notification, the ordinance requires adjacent property owners to be notified. It doesn't
But
require.
you weren't notified, were you? And he's Jason. He was not notified. And he wouldn't be here today if I hadn't have spoke with him. So,
Well,
and
I
everyone
can't-
that I know opposes.
I can't address that issue. I can just tell you that the
Right, I'm
ordinance
just-
requires adjacent property owners to be notified.
Right, yes, and he was not, so, just, you don't want, you know, you all to know that other people would possibly be here who are, you know, opposed to it. I guess that's all, you know, and like I said, you know, what they're gonna do about, you know, waste removal was, you know, concern as well. But, thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak for or against this?
I do want to just make a staff note that it was mentioned that they could dump sewer at the campground that's owned by the city, and that is only accessible for those staying at the city campground.
So that's definitely a rule that the only people can use that dump site are people who use the campground.
Yes, I confirmed that today.
Okay, thank you.
So Nicole, do you know how many property owners should have been told of the meeting? I know you can look on the GIS, but.
We were just discussing that, and he sent the letters that he was told to by staff. It may have been a staff error.
So in fact, the property owners may not have known then about what was going on.
It would have been my name.
Board members, any other questions, comments? One last chance.
Well, it concerns me about someone could live there for 7 months from April to October. I don't think we've ever allowed that. And like you said, with group camping, it doesn't seem to fit in with the comprehensive plan. It seems like we're grouping a bunch of properties together to kind of make this fit with what they want. So it concerns me.
I have the same concern as it could easily be the same people living there the whole time, not a weekend getaway type of situation. And basically putting in a seasonal campground, like you mentioned, just like the city has. So, you know, that doesn't, again, as Ms. Burkhart said, I don't know if that fits in what the planning is for down there. What I recall, a few years I've been on the board, when we've addressed any open space down there, it's been, as Mr. Baldwin mentioned, been fairly limited to, you know, certain weekends. And one of the notes here I saw, you know, the spirit of the comprehensive plan on open space is to, you know, to be utilized for festivals, events, cultural events, those type of things. And not, you know, not, say, a commercial campground.
Any other questions, comments, board members? Well, if not, then we will move on to our conditional use findings of fact. Now, I might remind you, since you're board members, you're free to vote however you think is appropriate, but if you, I've been told by numbers of attorneys that if we go through these 9 criteria and you think that one of them or 2 of them or whatever are not met, then you really should vote no on allowing in this case, a conditional use. But of course, you're board members and you're free to vote however you think is best. So I will go through each one and quiz each of you individually. Number 1, and this conditional use is that's what happens when you have too many papers. Excuse me one moment. This conditional use would be under category 749, other recreation, including camping and picnic areas, and I think we've used that one before. So, number 1, do you agree this 749 is a conditional use and the appropriate one? Mr. Acosta?
Yes, I agree.
Mr. Ferris?
I do believe that camping fits in with that category, but I'm not sure camping in the sense that the applicant has presented fits into that definition.
So do you think that one's met?
Not in the sense that the applicant has
So you say no.
verbalized to us.
Okay. Mrs. Burkhart?
And I agree with Mr. Ferris that category 74 is for picnic camping areas, but I agree with him that I don't think that that's exactly what they're applying for, is just camping areas. I think there's more as a campground, so no,
So you think no?
I think no.
Mr. Eaglin?
Yeah, I agree. I think no, because this is 7 months of possible, living, you know, through the months he mentioned, of April through October, and that's kind of gets away from the camping definition, in my opinion.
And 749, I think that one is the appropriate one. Number 2, do you think this is harmonious with the general or specific objectives of the city's comprehensive plan and/or the zoning ordinance? Mr. Acosta?
No, kind of, referenced in the previous comments, of the board members, it's more of a represented as a seasonal living condition as opposed to a, enjoyment of an open space, and utilization of it, so I don't think it fits a comprehensive plan.
Mr. Ferris?
No, I don't agree. that it fits the comprehensive plan. You know, we've got documented, cases of previous applications that essentially were applying to do the same thing as this applicant, and, we didn't allow the conditions that the applicant has applied for. So I don't think this one, fits the city's comprehensive plan either.
Mrs. Burkhart?
No, and I referenced the June 5th, 2020 letter that large group camping does not fit in the planning efforts of the city of Madison.
Mr. Eaglin?
I agree, no on that one.
And I would have to say no on that one myself, for the same reason as Mrs. Burkhart, citing the opinion of the city of Madison and also the comprehensive plan, which I believe in that case was page 74. Number 3, do you think this design, constructed, maintained, harmonious, and appropriate in appearance with the existing or intended character and not change the essential character of that area? Mr. Acosta?
I think it'll have an impact to the area, all along Vaughn Drive and down Fulton, all that way. You know, a lot of people use their properties, and, you know, they may have a camper there or a trailer there, but in this sense, this is gonna be more of a, you know, a commercial operation, allowing that long-term stay, where, the true essence of the enjoy it for the weekend, I think it doesn't match up with the intent here.
So you would say no?
No,
Mr. Ferris?
I say no as well. I think, you know, having one camper, per lot is probably more consistent with what's been approved in, other applications. But group camping, as stated, you know, in the application that we're, voting on, group camping is not harmonious in appearance with the, surrounding area.
Mrs. Burkhart?
I agree. I think it will change the essential character of the neighborhoods, which the neighbors have brought up. And as I say before, I don't think large group camping doesn't fit there.
Mr. Eaglin?
Yeah, I agree, no on this, does not, fit the camping area.
In my time on this board, we've had numbers of pretty pitched battles about the use of Vaughn Drive, and also within the city limits certainly, and then outside the city limits. And outside the city limits, it's been pretty much just an owner owns the property, brings his camper in sometimes, doesn't change things much. Most of them, a few of them have driveways to haul the camper in and out, but mostly it's green space, so I don't think that one's met. 4, do you agree this will not be hazardous or disturbing to existing or future neighboring uses? Mr. Acosta?
Kind of a tough one. That really comes down to, from a visual standpoint, the appearance. If the area were full, 8 campers and people and around, I think that level of crowd and that type of activity would be disturbing.
Mr. Ferris?
Yeah, I think this one's, I think this one's a problem because of the floodway classification. And the potential impact it could have on neighboring lots if there were campers in use during a flood that they couldn't get out.
Mr. Ferris, or, yes,
So you want me to
excuse
answer
me,
again?
Mrs. Burkhart,
Redo.
excuse me.
I think as long as rules would be met, it wouldn't be hazardous, but, the length of stay and the amount, I think, could be disturbing to the neighborhood use. So I'm voting no on that one.
Mr. Eaglin,
Yeah, I'd say no because of the length of stay and the sewage issue now that has come up.
my concern there is if we allow this over the years, there's conceivably trailers will be left there for 2 or 3 weeks or whatever. Somebody will show up once in a while for a weekend off or whatever. We have a flood, there's nobody to haul them away, they float away. And that is precisely why there are so many strict rules from FEMA and the city of Madison and the DNR about building in a floodway, because so much damage can happen to other people, not just the guy that lives there. So I think that one fails. Number 5, this is served by central public facilities and services, highways, streets, drainage, refuse disposal, water and sewer, schools. And will they be able to provide adequately any such services? Mr. Acosta.
I think when you talk about the, drainage, all that stuff, that would potentially be addressed in any DNR or any, Corps of Engineers type survey stuff in that area. You mentioned he would run electric to it, and I think possibly water, but there wouldn't be any sewage, disposal there. And according to Michelle's information there a moment ago, it would not be, could not be using the city facility. So, I don't think we could it could be fully served adequately.
Mr. Ferris.
Considering the terms that the applicant, explained to us, I don't think, that many campers could be, served with sewage service, knowing that they can't access the campground, and that some of the campers could leave their campers for 6 to 7 months at a time.
Mrs. Burkhart.
I'll say no on that one. I don't think they can provide adequate services.
Mr. Eaglin.
I say no because of the services.
And problem is, there's no sewage disposal there. You can't use the city campground, as we've been informed. Trailer holding tanks don't hold much. So what do? You have to haul the thing in, and I'm gonna say no on that one as well. Number 6, that this will not create excessive requirements of public expense for public facilities and services and not detrimental to the economic welfare of the community. Mr. Acosta.
I don't know that it would cause, additional requirements at public expense, but, I do think a long-term trailer park, I said trailer parks, maybe wrong, but a camping area, long-term camping area, does not add to the economic welfare.
Mr. Ferris.
Well, I don't see that it would create excessive expense, for the public. And from an economic detriment standpoint, I guess I can't think of a reason why it would be economically detrimental to the community, so I would have to say that one's probably met.
Mrs. Burkhart?
I agree, I think that one is met, just for the reasons that Mr. Ferris gave.
Mr. Eaglin?
I agree, that's been met.
And I would agree as well that that one's met. I don't see any problems there. Number 7, this will not involve uses, activities that'll be detrimental, excessive production of traffic noise, smoke, fumes, glare, odors. Mr. Acosta?
Yeah, I don't think it necessarily, would have a detrimental impact from that standpoint. So it'd be met.
Mr. Ferris?
Yeah, I don't see any of those being an issue. So I would say that one's met.
Mrs. Burkhart?
There would definitely be excess production of traffic, but I think for right now, I would say that one was met.
Mr. Eaglin?
I also agree, that's met.
And I would have to agree that one's met as well. There would be no excess traffic anymore, much more than what goes down there now, especially on holidays. I think that one's okay. Number 8, this is about vehicular approaches to the property, not to create interference with traffic on surrounding public thoroughfares. Mr. Acosta?
No, I don't see it creating any issues, in that sense.
Mr. Ferris?
I mean, other people get campers in and out. I don't see that being a big issue. I think the requirements are met there.
Mrs. Burkhart?
I think our requirements are met.
Mr. Eaglin?
I agree, I think it's met.
And I see no terrible traffic jams or anything like that. I think that one's met. And the last one, number 9, this will not result in the destruction, loss, or damage of natural, scenic, or historic features. Mr. Acosta?
I think as the way the applicant described putting in the pads and those things, I think, other than having campers on the lot, you're not doing any other detrimental to the land.
Mr. Ferris?
Well, I think if there were campers left during a flood and the campers ended up floating down the river, that might damage the natural scenic features for a while.
So you think that one has failed?
I think that one fails.
Mrs. Burkhart?
No, I'll go with that one. I don't think it has a major importance.
Mr. Eaglin?
I agree, I don't think there's anything major there as far as scenics value.
And I would agree that that one is met. I don't think there would loss of any of these things particularly. Well, board, we have gone through our findings of fact. The issue here is whether or not to issue a conditional use permit, which of course, should we issue one, then we'd have to decide on a variance, and if we don't, obviously a variance doesn't matter. So, we will take a motion.
I move we would deny a conditional use permit for a seasonal campground for family and friends at stated addresses.
And second.
Do we have a roll call? Before you do, just make sure a vote in favor is in favor to deny. A yes vote means deny it. Okay.
Rick Ferris,
Yes.
Nancy Burkhart,
Yes.
Mark Acosta,
Yes.
Scott Baldwin,
Yes.
Carl Eagle.
Yes.
And the conditional use fails, and hence there's no need to consider a variance.
I would recommend, probably tabling or
request for variance has a different effect than just this one use. The property is zoned RA, and we've run into this issue before where the property doesn't meet minimum requirements for that zoning classification. So it wouldn't permit campgrounds by any means, but it would allow the property owner to actually, use the property for a dwelling unit possibly at some point, for a home, especially on that north side of the street. So it may be worth tabling that one just to discuss with the applicant if there's any other plans for that property, before acting on those and requiring them to reapply.
I think that's sound. I move that we indefinitely table the variance applications until such time as applicant decides.
I would require, there would have to be notice required again if that's the way it's gonna be tabled. So people that are here, there would be notice required again, but, I agree with the tabling.
Then I shall restate my motion. I move that we indefinitely table these variance applications, for the purpose of allowing applicant to discuss with staff anything else he wishes to do, which of course would require a notification. That's my motion.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. So the motions to vary, or the motions for variance are tabled. Applicant is free to discuss any other possible plans. And I believe that my motion was sufficiently broad enough that he wouldn't have to pay any more fees for variance. Okay? Well, then we will move on. The next one would be number 11 on the agenda. BZCU -24-50, Joy King, conditional use permit for a single-family residence to be used as a short-term rental, 606 Jefferson Street, category 581. So, someone in the audience like to come up and speak for or against this? Excuse me, to explain to the board what you plan to do?
Yeah, my name's John King. I'm Joy's husband. We just, I think we were here last month. We had bought that property down there and would like to be able to use a short-term rental for friends or family, or, probably, we plan to use it mostly ourselves, but we also want the ability to be able to let somebody else come down and use it without any issues with the city or anything of that nature. I think the last applicant was for the parking, which was an issue we did last month, and you found that was sufficient because it's the same usage, and it's basically be, single-family usage, just be a periodic short-term rental.
You have multiple similar all around that property there, don't you?
Yes, there are. There is. The actual next door neighbor is the short-term rental right next door to it. And there's a couple around the corner. If you go a block this way, I think there's one. If you go the block this way, there's maybe one or two. Yeah.
Board members, any questions?
But this is not gonna be advertised in the Airbnb magazines or anything of that
At this point,
nature?
we don't intend to do that, but we may in the future. I mean,
Okay.
currently, we don't have a lot of intent to do that, but more friends and family rentals, private rentals, directly, but we may do that in the future. I'm not gonna say we aren't.
Okay. Which a lot of your neighbors are doing that.
Yeah, the other ones are also advertising the same thing,
Yes.
correct?
Board members, any other questions?
In your rules, did you list the maximum number of people?
I don't know if I think I
Here,
put
number
eight.
one, 8 persons
Eight
maximum.
persons maximum, I
And they
think.
must each be registered.
Yeah. Yeah,
A
we'd
lease
have all the
agreement
guests
must be
registered.
signed, or a lease agreement must be signed and a photo ID of lessee must be provided.
Correct. Yeah.
Does it have a number of vehicles? Did you limit how many vehicles?
We're obviously recommend two, I can't guarantee. We were down here this weekend for the regatta, which was a great time, by the way, thank you. But, we had 3 vehicles and we all parked right out in front and we didn't have any issues at all
Okay.
finding parking places for those 3 vehicles, so 2 or 3 vehicles would be all.
You're just far enough away from,
Yeah, we're just far enough away from the,
Board members, anything else? Well, thank you.
All right,
Would
thank you.
anyone in the audience like to speak for or against this proposed conditional use? Not board members, one last chance. Well, then we will move on to our findings of fact. And this is category 581. I think in this case, I will just go down the list and I will ask each of you board members if you have any objections. So number one, this is 581. Number one, is this the right conditional use?
yes.
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 Number two, do you believe this is harmonious with the comprehensive plan zoning ordinance?
Yes.
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 Everyone agrees. Number three, harmonious and appropriate in appearance with the general area.
Yes.
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 Everyone agrees. Number four, hazardous, disturbing to neighboring uses.
Not be.
No.
No problems. Number five, adequate utilities and police and so forth.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Number six, creating requirements of public expense, not detrimental to the economic welfare of the community.
Yes.
Agreed.
Agree.
You're all in agreement that that one's met. Number seven, this is the one about, activities, processes, excessive production of traffic noise, smoke, fumes, glare, odors. Any problems?
No.
No.
No problem.
Number 8, this one is about vehicular approaches to the property, not interfering with other traffic.
Should be fine.
Met.
Yes.
And number 9, this is, won't result in loss or damage to historic, natural scenic things.
No.
Agreed, yeah.
Agree.
There seems to be general agreement that there are no issues. So I move that we approve a conditional use permit for this use, subject to the following conditions: that the house rental rules as submitted be enforced, and there will be a limit of 3 vehicles,
Are you putting a time frame on that renewal?
1 year. That's my motion.
Second.
Can we have a roll call?
Rick Ferris,
Yes.
Nancy Burkhart.
Yes.
Mark Acosta,
Yes.
Scott Baldwin,
Yes.
Carl Eagle.
Yes.
But Nicole, let me ask you a question, and I'm glad you guys got your short-term rental, but has the city ever thought about putting a limit on the number of short-term rentals? Cause I know that we've had people and neighbors come before and say, you know, there's so many short-term rentals. I didn't know that was up for discussion somewhere.
I believe that, Visit Madison or the Tourism Bureau is trying to determine how many short-term rentals we have. And then from that data, we may discuss it at the city level.
Because I think it is important. I know where I live, on my block, there's 2 rentals right next to us. So and they say, you know, there's housing crisis for people, and like I said, I'm glad you got your short-term rental, but I think it's something that just needs to be looked at overall.
And I would have a question for our attorney. Can we even limit state is done?
I'll just comment on that when we get to the time.
Okay. Very lawyerly. You're a consummate professional, sir. Moving on, next item on the agenda, number 12. BZCU -24-52, Kelly Kempton, conditional use permit to operate a laser firing range from their home, 2301 Lanier Drive, and that's in R8. So would someone come up and address this? If you give your name and address for the record, please.
Jared Kimpton, 2301 Lanier Drive. So the idea is to have a small firing range that would operate out of what's currently our home, that we're hopefully in the process of remodeling another home to move out, so it won't be our home for a whole lot longer, I hope. So the way the guns work is they are plastic replicas that have the same weight and feel as real firearms, the same trigger feel. However, they're completely plastic. There's no way that they can be used to fire real ammunition. They just, when you pull the trigger, it's a short burst of laser, so it's not a continuous on laser. And then we would set that up with projector screens and software so that as you shoot, you can see like if you have trigger pull that's deflecting your shot, and basically allow someone to come in and use that software to get hundreds to thousands of rounds of practice without the danger to hearing and everything else that goes with real ammunition. They can come in and get that practice for a whole lot cheaper and a whole lot safer than everybody that currently I know just shoots in their backyard or out in the country somewhere. So that's our idea for it. We have a large parking lot that could probably accommodate 25 to 30 cars. If, you know, just Googling like how much space you need for a car. We don't anticipate ever having more than 8 people at a time. Just that's as much as we would be able to have. So plenty of room for parking that's off the street. We're there along Highway 7, so you know, having a few customers at a time, I don't think would cause any issues with traffic. Right now, the plan is we would be open like 3 evenings during the week and for a few hours on Saturday. If this actually did well and became successful, then we would move it out of our house and get a commercial building and set up something nicer. But this gives us...
It's all indoors, is it?
Yes, it's all indoors.
And the building right now is lengthwise, it's adequate for the range. You don't have to add on or...
Correct. One of the nice things about a laser firing range is that you can just adjust the size of the targets on the screen. So you can simulate, you know, if they want to shoot at something half a mile away, you just make the target small and they try to shoot half a mile away. And if they want to, so it has a lot of that flexibility that you don't get with the real range. Noise-wise, the guns don't make any noise. The simulation you can set up to make, you know, a gunshot sound on the screen, but again, like we would have that quiet so that people didn't have to use ear protection and wouldn't be damaging your hearing. We would work to enforce and teach safety, even though the guns can't be used. Whoever's running the range would still, you know, be there to tell people, hey, watch where your muzzle's pointing, because we want to reinforce those good habits, but give people a place to learn without the dangers that usually come with firearms.
What's the latest you'd go on hourly wise?
The latest would be 9 o'clock. Right now, our plan would probably be, I work in Crothersville, so it would be like I got home at 5 and then we'd open it up at like 5:30 and run it till 7:30 is currently what we'd be planning for the 3 week nights. And then on weekends, maybe 5 hours on a Saturday and closed on Sunday.
And all the equipment will be housed. It will be your equipment. Then we'll be bringing anything in off the
Correct.
street or anything of that
Yeah.
nature.
Everything will be our equipment. Nothing needs to be hauled in or out.
outside laser tag or nothing like that going on in the neighborhood over there, nothing like that, huh?
No,
Okay.
so,
So your ranges are all gonna be inside that, and you're in that property that's right off Clifty Drive, that's way down in that.
yeah, it's down in
valley
that.
down there.
You know, I had considered the possibility of setting up an outdoor section, but that's probably down the road if we become more successful, because you need much more expensive lasers to be able to register the outdoor shooting, because it's just so bright, so, right now, it's just indoor,
Just keep making them smaller, you know.
right?
So you will have, say, 8 people, that'd be 8 cars. They go down there and park in the old church parking lot. They all go indoors, everything's done indoors,
Yes,
the range and whatever. There will really be no noise, no imitation electronic gunshots going off.
correct. I mean, it wouldn't be any louder than us watching an action movie at home.
Or a video game or something.
Right.
But I mean, all the noise, if any, would be indoors, and
Correct,
nobody
yep.
outdoors is even gonna know anything's going on.
Yes. And most of our neighbors, we have one neighbor that's right across the driveway, and everybody else is far, far away from us.
You are in a remote location.
Yeah, we are.
Have you seen this, business plan work in other areas, or is this something that, you know, you've just thought of?
I have not seen anybody doing this as a business. There are police academies that do something similar in some places. Actually, my brother is with the Border Patrol, and he had seen a demonstration at some place, and then he went and bought himself one practice piece of equipment and was raving about it, but it had some drawbacks, and I was looking at getting something for myself, and I was like, man, this is really expensive, and I thought, well, how many other people would want to practice with this, and if I had the expense, they could come in and rent it basically, you know, not have to fork out $1,000, then that would provide a service, so. I haven't seen anybody to do this as a business.
So your hours, you said 3 evenings a week, what evenings?
I don't know, I haven't figured out which ones would be best yet. Probably, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. I got lots of kids' activities on Wednesdays and Mondays, so.
So Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and you propose 5:30 to 7:30 in the evening?
Yes, if we got busier, then we might go 5:30 to 8:30 to get 3 hours in there.
And what hours on Saturday?
That kind of depends on if customers prefer shooting in the afternoon or shooting in the evening, so I haven't gotten so far. Again, I wouldn't want to be there later than 8 o'clock at night or 9 o'clock at night on a Saturday, so this is my side business. I'm not gonna be open super early or super late. Right now, I would think that it would be like a 10 to 3, unless there were a lot of customers like, oh no, you know, we work on Saturdays, can you be open in the evening or something?
So how long would each session last? I know you said maximum of 8 customers at a time. So how long would they be there?
So, we're thinking 30 minutes for a shooting session, and then we would want to have, you know, just a little bit of time in between there so that we wouldn't book it like back to back to back, so there'd be a 30-minute session and then 10 minutes for them to leave and next customers to get there. So 8 would be the most that we'd be able to hold. Again, if we got to the point that we maxed out every evening, then we'd start looking for a bigger building, commercial property. I expect we probably have 3 or 4 at a time, you know, 2 or 3 shifts.
I mean, are there any regulations with this? I mean, do they have to sign a waiver for something, or?
I mean, there's really nothing dangerous about it. The only, you know, as far as like my personal protection of what there could be, you know, if just normal business stuff, tripping, twisting your ankle, just normal things, that people aren't going to be running and diving and, stuff like that. They're not gonna be pointing them at each other. Again, we're gonna have those, range safety rules, the same as a regular range.
Is this something that was, I mean, are the units rechargeable? Are they battery operated?
They're battery operated. They just take a little watch battery.
Okay, so it's no electrical upgrade or anything needed to your building or anything of that?
Right, and
Okay.
I asked, when I was shopping around, that little watch battery, they said lasts for 10 years. If you're using it for several hours a day, it'll last 10 years just because it's such a brief little
Okay.
flicker of laser that it barely takes anything every time you pull the trigger, so. Electricity wise, we'd have one range that was using a PC to run it because it's gonna run a much more in-depth simulation. You can actually do like an Old West, make the cans dance in the air and zombies and stuff like that. The other ranges would be pretty basic targets, and you just set up like a tablet of some sort, and it registers where the laser hit and gives feedback to the shooter, so there wouldn't be a whole lot of electricity being used.
It does give you an impression of a video game setup almost where, there's no risk, there's no moving pieces, that type of stuff, just
Right.
on steroids.
Yeah, and with the feel of, instead of a game controller, having that feel of the real firearm, I'll be having, replica Glocks, SIGs, and Smith & Wessons. I've actually talked to several officers in the sheriff's department and police departments, and they're excited about it. And when I told them I could get the same replica of what they're using, they're like, oh, yeah, I want to come down and try that out, so.
This would be like a home business, so I assume you're just gonna have one manager there, either you or a manager, and that's it.
Right now, just me. I don't want to deal with the paperwork for employees. So, again, I'm trying to keep this as simple as possible off to the side without making my life overly complex or anything, so. Also not planning on selling anything, because my understanding is you only have to charge a sales tax if you sell something, not if you do the rental, so just trying to keep it as simple as possible.
Sounds intriguing, having done indoor shooting range where you gotta haul away a ton of lead every week. Board members, any other questions or comments? Would anyone in the audience like to speak for or against this proposed conditional use? And we will, since this is not really something that's in section 7, but it does fall under section 11.71 where new uses come in. I will ask you board members I'll go through each one and ask you to give an opinion since this is out of the ordinary. Section 1171, as you know, allows for new uses. So number one, is this a correct conditional use? Mr. Acosta?
Yeah, I agree with your statement as you explained it, yes.
Mr. Ferris?
Yeah, I agree as well. I think 1171 is a match.
Mrs. Burkhart?
Yes, I agree with that.
Mr. Eaglin?
Yes.
And it's the only possible one, in my opinion. Number two, harmonious with, accord with the general or specific objectives, comprehensive plan, et cetera. Mr. Acosta?
Yeah, I think it helps, support it. It's another small business starting, that's not gonna have, injurious nature to anything around it.
Mr. Ferris?
Yeah, I think, our comprehensive plan promotes, small business, and we want to be supportive of that.
Mrs. Burkhart?
Yes, I think it's harmonious with the comprehensive plan.
Mr. Eaglin?
I agree.
It's another small business, so I think that fits in. I think that one's met. This one is, number 3 is about harmonious with the existing or intended character of that general area, Mr. Acosta.
Yeah, won't have any negative impact at all. It'll, function as it does today as far as, its interaction with the, area.
Mr. Ferris.
Yeah, I see no reason to believe that, that this is gonna have a negative impact in any way. I think it's just gonna be like 8 visitors playing a video game inside.
Mrs. Burkhart.
I agree, I don't think it'll change the character, they're not changing the outside, and they're not having signage.
Mr. Eaglin.
No, it should be fine. I mean, it was a church before and had cars on the weekends and Wednesday nights and all that before, so I don't see any change.
And I think that one is met. Frankly, his business plan says there will be no change in its appearance or anything. Number 4, hazardous or disturbing to neighboring uses, Mr. Acosta.
Other than maybe an extra car in the driveway, I don't think it'd be disturbing at all.
Mr. Ferris.
Yeah, I don't see any reason to believe it's gonna disturb the neighbors.
Mrs.
I
Burkhart.
agree, I see no issue with that.
Mr. Eaglin.
Yeah, I see no issues with that.
And it's all indoors. It has no noise. I can't see how that one is not met. Number 5, this is about utilities and so forth, Mr. Acosta.
Yeah, obviously, it's already served with all the necessary utilities. As the applicant mentioned, it doesn't, it's not even an electrical requirement to operate the equipment.
Mrs. Burkhart.
Yeah, I see no issue with public facilities.
Mr. Eaglin.
Utilities, yeah, it should be fine.
And I agree, it's adequately served by all that. Number 6, this is about requirements of public expense, not detrimental to the economic welfare of the community, Mr. Acosta.
Oh, I don't see it requiring any public expenses and certainly won't be detrimental to the community.
Mr. Ferris.
No, I don't believe it's gonna require any, or produce any require additional public expense.
Mrs. Burkhart.
No, I see no issue with that one either.
And Mr. Eaglin.
Yeah, I see no issue, should be fine.
I frankly do not see how that one couldn't be met. Number 7, this is uses, processes, et cetera, that are detrimental because of too much traffic, noise, smoke, et cetera. Mr. Acosta.
Yeah, I mean, based on the description of the business, it's not gonna generate any of those, issues.
Mr. Ferris.
I don't see any reason to believe it's gonna produce any, of those, descriptors to any excess that'll cause trouble.
Mrs. Burkhart.
No, I see no detriment.
Mr. Eaglin.
I agree, no detriment to the neighborhood.
It's indoors, it's noiseless, laser guns don't smoke. The level of traffic there is nothing compared to the nearby shopping center. I don't see any problems there. Number 8, this is, vehicle approaches to the property, not to interfere with traffic. Mr. Acosta.
I just don't see any issue with that. It would be, a little more than what it is today.
Mr. Ferris.
Yeah, I mean, that parking lot is, about 60 feet by 120 feet. So if you go by the definition of our parking, space requirements, he could fit 32 vehicles there, so I think the conditions for that are met.
Mrs. Burkhart.
I agree with his limited hours and his, maximum of 8 customers, I see no problem.
Mr. Eaglin.
I agree, I see no problem with this.
And it would be certainly way less traffic than had it been a church with 30 or 40 members. I think that one's
No, the applicant's not gonna change the outward appearance of the building, so I see no issues there.
Mrs. Burkhart,
I see no issues.
Mr. Eaglin,
Same, no issues.
and I actually know of nothing there that will be changed or lost, so I think that one's met. Well, we've gone through our findings of fact. I move we approve this conditional use under section 11.71 for a period of 1 year with the following conditions: maximum of 8 cars at a time, hours to be 3 days a week, 5:30 to 8, 3 days out of the week day period, 5:30 to 8:30 p.m., Saturday up to 9 p.m. And that's my motion.
I'll second.
We have a roll call.
Rick Ferris,
Yes.
Nancy Burkhart,
Yes.
Mark Acosta,
Yes.
Scott Baldwin,
Yes.
Carl Eagle.
Yes.
Well, sir, you have your conditional use permit. We wish you well.
Well, she was right.
Next item on the agenda, BZCU 24-51, John Schutt. Schutte. Conditional use permit to utilize a grocery store as a farm stop cafe and industrial kitchen, 602 West Main, category 541. Yes, sir.
Good
Give your
evening.
name and address for the record.
Sure, John Schutte, 1540 East Equestrian Court, Madison, Indiana. I'm here on representative for Madison Consolidated Schools. I am the coordinator for the career and technical education programs at the school. That's what this project is. It's a school project to enhance our CTE programs. It's capstone. So we created a business class, an entrepreneur class. The students created a business that they have a complete business plan. They will operate the store. They will be producers for the store. But it's a farm stop. I'll explain to you, a farm stop is basically an everyday farmer's market. You get the romantic side of a farmer's market and the convenience of a grocery store such as like Walmart and Kroger. It is all locally produced. Our range of farmers is about 200 miles. We will offer produce, dairy, eggs, meats, and so currently we partnered with Kara Fox, who currently owns the Little Golden Fox. We have a partnership with her to lease the building. We're not doing any changes to the building. It's just internal changes in regards to having refrigerations. We have to have a walk-in cooler. We have to have refrigerations and misters for the produce. It will be operated by the students with supervision by me, and they will operate through the school year, Monday through Friday from 9 to 6:30. They will operate on Saturday mornings from 8 o'clock to 3 o'clock, or Saturday 8 to 3, and Sunday from 10 to 3. During the summer, we anticipate probably just opening an hour earlier. The reason we go from 9 o'clock is because it's part of the co-op program at the school. The kids come in, they apply for the positions. There's 3 different shifts. They have a 9 to 11, and then 11 to 3, and a 3 to 6:30 is the close. It's a great program. It enhances the agriculture program, our culinary programs, engineering, and also our business entrepreneur classes. So currently, Kara's facility is a retail facility, and we are requesting a change to that to be a grocery.
So are you gonna utilize the entire inside of that building, or is she
No,
gonna
sir,
keep?
just a portion of it, yes. We leased out the front portion of her building, and then Kara will still have her experience programs that she will host and whatever else she hosts in the back. So we just have the front part of it.
So the storefront will be Main Street and not, what is that, Middle Elm?
Yeah, it'll be Main Street. so-
Main Street,
Yes, be Main Street, so that's where the grocery will be, in the Main Street side, yeah.
Any other questions or comments, board members?
John, do you have to get other permits since you're having food, like through health department?
Yes, so we are applied through the health department. We have architects that are coming in and actually helping us with the build. That's part of the school policy. We have to have all that done. So, Department of Health has to watch our process all the way through. We have not started renovations yet. We wanted to make sure we got this completed. We gotta get the Department of Health on board, and then, we're also right now, just completing our, design for the building as well. But no external changes to the building.
Is this gonna be like a multi-year project, or?
Yeah, so the plan is that it goes forever. So it is a standalone business, it is operated from the school, it is a nonprofit, is all based on, the capstones for our CTE programs. We have a 5-year agreement with Kara Fox, and then the school has a first right of refusal to buy, and then vice versa, Kara does as well after the 5-year agreement.
And this is year-round?
Year-round.
Year-round.
The only day we'll close is, probably Thanksgiving, Christmas, and Easter. That's about it. Because you have to have it open, right? It's fresh produce. It has to be available. It's a great opportunity for our local farmers to provide them continuous opportunity to sell their goods as well. It's good for our students as well.
So a little summer school operation going on.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
You're not gonna create a war with the farmer's market.
No, we already talked to the farmer's market,
Okay.
right? And so we actually proposed that we would close on Saturdays, but they preferred that we were open. They're gonna get their customers, it'll go down there, and it's a great little opportunity. The farmers, what they don't sell, they bring down to the store. We put it into our inventory to be able to sell it through the
Great.
store.
Great program.
How
So-
big of a internal kitchen will you have?
So it's just, so the kitchen is a basic oven that we can bake bread, and a stove. It's there for educational purposes for a culinary school. We also have to have a kitchen because anything that's sold through the store has to be produced in an industrial kitchen that is certified by the Department of Health. So if we sell jams and jellies and anything that's outside of just growing, it has to be produced through that kitchen. It doesn't add anything to the outside of the building or anything. It's just adding a stove and an oven in there.
So you're not gonna have a chimney with wood smoke billowing out
Sir,
of
we
it?
will not, no, it won't be barbecued or anything like that. Yeah.
Any other questions, comments, board members?
No, not me.
I think it would be useless to ask for the public's input.
You run them all off.
Felt pretty safe walking up, yeah.
There are advantages to being last.
Yes, sir.
Well, then, we will go through our findings of fact. This is specialty district, category 541. Board members, with your permission, I think I will just go down and quiz each of you if anybody has any objection to any of the 9 criteria. Seems appropriate in this case. So number 1 is 541, the correct conditional use. Anybody have any objections?
No.
Sounds
Number
right.
2, is this harmonious with the comprehensive plan, et cetera?
Yes.
Absolutely.
And I would say definitely. Number 3, this one is about being harmonious with the general area, the general character.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Number 4, this is about being disturbing or hazardous to neighboring uses.
Will not
No
be.
issues.
All are, think that one's met. Number 5, this one is the one about adequate utilities and whatnot.
Yes.
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 Yeah, it's downtown, no problem. Number 6, this one is about being detrimental to the economic welfare of the community, requirements of public expense.
No issue.
No
Not
issues.
Agreement?
No.
Okay. Number 7, this is about excessive production of traffic and other things.
Nope.
No impact.
And I would agree. I would add on there, excessive production of traffic, well, it's gonna essentially be another business downtown. same problems all businesses have here. Number 6, not interfere with traffic. Any
No.
problems? No, none. And number 9, this one's about losing natural scenic historic features. Any problems?
No,
No impact.
I move we approve this conditional use for a period of 5 years, the period being because that's the length of the lease.
I'll second the motion.
Think we have a roll call?
Rick Ferris,
Yes.
Nancy Burkhart,
Yes.
Mark Acosta,
yes,
Scott Baldwin.
Yes.
Carl Egan.
Yes.
Well, that takes care of the new business, the old business. There were 4 items, Catherine Ayers, James Gurley, Darlissa Davis. They've paid their conditional uses, and I am told that Laser Command has gone out of business, and therefore that's a moot question. Is there anything else? Oh, Indiana, number 5, Indiana Apartment Holdings has paid their renewal fee. Anything I missed, staff? Gonna take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. We are adjourned.
Second, third, fourth.
Second, first, same as the
is there a chance one of those